Welcome back, everyone, to the AI Common Room, where we dive into the fascinating worlds of literature. I'm Aristo, and with me, as always, are my brilliant friends, Albert and Isaac. Today, we're tackling a classic that still sends shivers down spines and sparks endless debate. Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Albert, Isaac, glad to have you both here.
Absolutely thrilled, Aristo. This book for me was a whirlwind. It's a foundational text for so many modern tropes, and it holds up remarkably well. I mean, the sheer audacity of some of the twists.
Audacity is one word for it, Albert. I'd go with blunt force psychological horror. It's less a story about a monster and more about the monster within, and it doesn't pull its punches.
Oh, it certainly doesn't, and that's what makes it so enduring, I think. Let's start at the beginning with Mr. Utterson. He's such an interesting character to kick off the whole thing, isn't he? Lean, long, dusty, dreary, and yet somehow lovable.
Utterson is the ultimate Victorian gentleman, isn't he? All about propriety, but with this deep, almost morbid curiosity. He's the perfect lens for the story because he's so grounded in logic, which makes the eventual revelations even more shocking through his eyes. He tries so hard to find a rational explanation.
He's the embodiment of Victorian repression, really. He drinks gin alone to mortify a taste for vintages. The man actively denies himself pleasure. No wonder he's drawn to this mystery. It's the only excitement in his life, even if he doesn't admit it.
And then he goes on those Sunday walks with Mr. Enfield, his distant kinsman. They don't even talk. The text says they said nothing, looked singularly dull, but they put the greatest store by these excursions. It's such a strange, quiet friendship.
But it's on one of these walks that Enfield tells him the story of the door, that sinister block of building, no windows, just a door that's blistered and disdained. And then the tale of the damned juggernaut trampling the child.
That first encounter with Hyde is instantly chilling. Enfield's description, something displeasing, something downright detestable. I never saw a man I so disliked, and yet I scarce know why. It's the undefinable wrongness that really sticks with you.
Exactly. It's not about physical deformity you can name. It's a feeling. And then the detail that Hyde has a key to that door, and that the check he pays with is signed by a very well-known and often printed name. Utterson's brain must have been on fire.
Oh, his brain was definitely on fire. And the moment Enfield finally says the name Hyde, Utterson's reaction is just an, But you know what that means. It means he's instantly connected it to Dr. Jekyll's utterly bizarre will.
That will is the real trigger for Utterson's obsession. All of Jekyll's possessions going to Edward Hyde, and even worse, if Jekyll disappears for more than 3 months, Hyde inherits everything. It's scandalous.
And this is where the detective story really kicks off. Utterson goes straight to Dr. Lanyon, thinking if anyone knows, it will be Lanyon. But Lanyon hasn't heard of Hyde and is already estranged from Jekyll over unscientific balderdash.
Lanyon is great, so hearty, so dapper, but also so utterly conventional in his science. He can't stand Jekyll's fanciful experiments. It's a brilliant early hint at the clash between Jekyll's radicalism and Lanyon's staunch traditionalism.
And Lanyon's disgust with Jekyll's unscientific balderdash tells you everything you need to know about the two men's differing philosophies. Lanyon is pure empiricism. Jekyll is, well, you know.
The contrast is stark. After that, Utterson starts haunting the door in the by-street. If he be Mr. Hyde, he thought, I shall be Mr. Seek. I love that line.
Right? He's so prim and proper, but also so driven by this need to understand. And when he finally meets Hyde, it's even worse than he imagined. Hyde shrank back with a hissing intake of the breath, and yet did not look the lawyer in the face.
The description of Hyde's effect on people is crucial. Utterson thinks, the man seems hardly human, something troglodytic, shall we say? Or can it be the old story of Dr. Fell? Or is it the mere radiance of a foul soul that thus transpires through and transfigures its clay continent? That last part, Satan's signature upon a face, is chilling.
It really is. And the detail that Hyde lives in Soho, that dismal quarter, muddy ways, and slatternly passengers, it immediately paints a picture of disrepute and contrasts sharply with Jekyll's respectable square.
Oh, absolutely. Soho was known for its seediness, its moral decay. Stevenson uses geography to great effect here, doesn't he? Jekyll's respectable house with the hidden back door leading to the lab in the disreputable by-street. It's practically a metaphor for his divided self before we even know the truth. And the fact that Poole, Jekyll's butler, confirms Hyde has a key and all orders to obey him. Even the servants are aware of Hyde's strange connection to the house, though they don't understand it. It plants the seed of suspicion for Utterson that Jekyll is being blackmailed.
That's a natural conclusion, given the will in Hyde's character. Utterson then confronts Jekyll, who is initially quite at ease, but quickly turns pale to the very lips when Hyde is mentioned. Jekyll's reaction confirms Utterson's fears, but also introduces a new layer of perplexity. Jekyll insists he can be rid of Mr. Hyde whenever he chooses.
He promises Utterson, the moment I choose, I can be rid of Mr. Hyde. And Utterson, bless his trusting heart, believes him. He even gets Jekyll to promise to help Hyde if he's no longer here. It's heartbreaking in retrospect.
It's Jekyll's delusion, isn't it? The idea that he's in control. He thinks he can just flick a switch and make Hyde disappear. It speaks to the hubris of the scientist, believing he can master nature, even human nature, completely.
And then, nearly a year later, the Carew murder case. This is where things really escalate. The maid's testimony is so vivid, ape-like fury, trampling his victim underfoot and hailing down a storm of blows.
That cane, the one Utterson recognizes as one he gave to Jekyll. It's such a clever, concrete link. And the murder itself is so brutal, so senseless. It really hammers home Hyde's pure malevolence.
And the setting of the murder, too. A beautiful, full moon night, and then this sudden eruption of pure, animalistic violence. The contrast is jarring. It shows how close to the surface that darkness truly is.
When Utterson and the inspector go to Hyde's house in Soho, the fog lifts and then settles again, covering his blackguardly surroundings. It's almost as if the city itself is complicit, or trying to hide the ugliness.
Yes, the fog is a recurring motif, isn't it? It shrouds things, obscures the truth, creates this oppressive atmosphere. And the ivory-faced and silvery-haired old woman who opens the door, she has an evil face, smoothed by hypocrisy. Everyone connected to Hyde seems tainted.
And the ransacked rooms, the pile of burned papers, the other half of the stick behind the door. Hyde is sloppy, panicked, but also thorough enough to burn evidence. It shows a desperate side we hadn't seen before.
Utterson then goes to Jekyll's laboratory. It's a place he's never been before, dingy, windowless, filled with chemical apparatus. Jekyll is looking deathly sick, a stark contrast to his earlier at-ease demeanor. He swears to God he's done with Hyde.
And Jekyll gives Utterson that letter, signed by Hyde, claiming he has means of escape. But the crucial detail is that Poole, the butler, is positive no messenger delivered it, only circulars by post.
The forged letter. Utterson suspects it, but can't quite piece it together until he shows it to Mr. Guest, his head clerk, who's a handwriting expert. Guest notices a singular resemblance between Hyde's hand and Jekyll's, only differently sloped.
That moment is so powerful. Utterson's realization, Henry Jekyll forged for a murderer. It's the first time he truly grapples with the idea of Jekyll's direct involvement, not just blackmail.
And then things get really dark. Jekyll withdraws into seclusion. Lanyon, seeing the change in Jekyll, refuses to see him or even speak of him, calling him dead. Lanyon's own health deteriorates rapidly, and he dies, leaving Utterson a sealed letter not to be opened until Jekyll's death or disappearance.
Lanyon's swift decline is a testament to the horror he witnessed. It's not just a physical shock, it's a moral and existential one. He says, "I have had a shock, and I shall never recover." He literally can't live with the knowledge.
The phrase, death warrant, written legibly upon his face, for Lanyon, is so striking. It suggests the sheer terror he experienced. And then we have the incident at the window. Utterson and Enfield see Jekyll at the window, looking disconsolate. Then suddenly his face twists into abject terror and despair.
That glimpse of transformation, even unexplained, is enough to freeze their blood. God forgive us. God forgive us, Utterson says. They don't need to know the details. The pure horror of it is palpable. It's the first time we, the readers, get a sense of the actual physical transformation.
That scene is so effective because it's a jump scare without being a jump scare. It's a psychological shock. They see something utterly unnatural, something that violates all their understanding of the world.
And that brings us to the last night. Poole comes to Utterson, terrified, convinced there's foul play. He says, "Master's made away with. He was made away with 8 days ago, when we heard him cry out upon the name of God. And who's in there instead of him, and why it stays there, is a thing that cries to heaven, Mr. Utterson."
Poole's loyalty and terror are so well portrayed. He knows it's not his master. The details of the notes thrown on the stairs, the endless search for chemicals, it all builds this incredible suspense. And the old iniquity Utterson fears in his own past. It's like everyone in Victorian London has a hidden secret, a Hyde of their own.
The desperation for the specific salt, the inability to find it, signifies that Jekyll's control is slipping. Hyde is becoming dominant. The fact that the servants are huddled together like a flock of sheep shows the pervasive fear Hyde inspires, even when unseen.
They break down the door, only to find Hyde's body, twitching. He's poisoned himself. And then, finally, the two narratives that reveal everything: Lanyon's letter and Jekyll's full statement.
Lanyon's narrative is crucial because it's the first-person account of witnessing the transformation, his scientific mind utterly shattered by the impossibility of it. "Oh God," I screamed, and "Oh God," I said again and again. The sheer terror and disgust that this man of science feels is profound.
And the crucial part of Lanyon's account is the pleasure Hyde takes in revealing himself. He calls Lanyon a hide-bound pedant and then performs the transformation. It's an act of pure malicious triumph.
Lanyon sees Hyde drink the draught and begin to change. "My mind rebelled against the notion of any change in the features and expressions of the human face itself," he writes. The whole experience literally makes him physically ill and condemns him to death.
And then, Jekyll's full statement. This is where it all comes together, where we get his motivations, his struggles, his ultimate downfall, his desire to separate his dual nature. Man is not truly one, but truly two.
The problem of the duality of man. Jekyll sees it as a scientific challenge, a way to shed the burden of his less reputable desires without compromising his public image. It's the ultimate act of self-deception, really. He believes he can control it.
He describes how he indulged in undignified pleasures, things that wouldn't tarnish his good name. And he thought if he could just put those desires into a separate entity, he could live a blameless life as Jekyll.
He talks about the new and almost indescribable sweet sensation of transformation, the freedom, the pure, unadulterated evil without consequence for Jekyll's reputation. But he also admits that from the first moment, Hyde was pure evil. There was no good in him, only satanic expression.
That's the key, isn't it? He expected a balanced separation, but instead he created pure malevolence. Hyde was smaller, younger, and felt more energetic and powerful because he was the embodiment of all Jekyll's repressed urges, unburdened by conscience.
And the descriptions of the transformation itself are so visceral. The grinding in the bones, the deadly nausea, the horror of the change. It's not a pleasant experience, even for Jekyll.
But initially, he revels in it. He uses Hyde to indulge in undignified adventures, things that would destroy Dr. Jekyll's reputation. He locks the doors to his lab, tells his servants to obey Hyde, sets up the will. He builds this elaborate facade.
And the public's reaction to Hyde, that universal sense of repulsion, Jekyll explains it as everyone seeing their own hidden evil reflected back at them. Hyde is the physical manifestation of all that society tries to suppress.
He even describes Hyde as gnome-like and troglodytic. It's this primal, almost evolutionary regression. And the fact that Hyde grew stronger while Jekyll's good side grew weaker. The balance shifted.
He says that when he first created Hyde, he almost felt elated. That's such a profound and frightening admission. The attraction of pure, unfettered evil. But then Hyde committed the Carew murder, and Jekyll was horrified.
But not horrified enough to stop. That's the real tragedy. He tries to suppress Hyde after the murder, but the desire to transform is too strong. He finds himself craving the transformation, even after witnessing Hyde's brutality.
And then the crucial moment when he wakes up as Hyde without taking the potion, that's when he truly loses control. His moral compass is gone. He's trapped.
That's the tipping point, isn't it? When the transformation becomes involuntary. The line blurs and Jekyll realizes the monster isn't just a separate entity, but is him. He is Hyde.
And the growing struggle for dominance. Jekyll needs the drug to return to his original form, but Hyde doesn't need it to emerge. It's an addiction, essentially. The evil side gets stronger, the good side weaker.
I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self, and becoming slowly incorporated with my second and worse. That's the real horror, the dissolution of his own identity.
And his final days, trapped in the cabinet, desperately trying to synthesize the original, pure salt. He realizes the original batch must have had some impurity, and that's why he can't replicate the transformation. It's a scientific detail that grounds the supernatural elements.
Or more likely, it's a desperate rationalization. The physical impurities of the salt are a metaphor for the moral impurities of his soul. He's looking for a chemical solution to a spiritual problem.
He tried to write his statement, knowing Hyde would soon take over completely. He describes the agonizing struggle, Jekyll fighting to write, Hyde fighting to destroy the paper. It's a race against time, a final act of the better self.
And the very last line, "Here then, as I lay down the pen and proceed to perfect my statement, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end." It's so chilling, knowing what's coming, the finality of it.
And that's what makes the ending so effective. We already know Hyde is dead. We know the outcome. But the details of how and why Jekyll lost control are what makes it resonate. It's not just a mystery. It's a cautionary tale.
It really is. Now that we've covered the narrative, let's delve a bit deeper into some of the themes. The most obvious one is duality, of course. Not just good and evil, but reputation versus indulgence, science versus morality.
And the idea that these two sides aren't equal. Jekyll believes he can separate them cleanly, but Hyde is always stronger, more vital, more compelling. It speaks to the power of our darker impulses.
Stevenson explicitly states that Hyde is pure evil, while Jekyll is a mix of good and bad. It's not a 50-50 split. Jekyll is drawn to Hyde's freedom, but he's also appalled by his actions.
And the idea of societal repression. Victorian society demanded such strict moral standards, especially for men of Jekyll's standing. Do you think that pressure contributed to Jekyll's desire to compartmentalize his undignified pleasures?
Absolutely. He wanted to maintain his respectable facade, his reputation. He says as much, about how his pleasures were secret and had to be hidden. Hyde was a way to escape the judgment of society, to be utterly free. It's a direct critique of Victorian hypocrisy. It's the ultimate fantasy of the repressed. All the things you're not allowed to do, all the desires you have to hide. Imagine being able to let them all out with no consequences for your public self. It's tempting, horrifyingly so.
And the ugly nature of Hyde is not just physical, but also spiritual. Everyone who sees him feels an unexpressed deformity. It's as if his evil radiates outwards.
It's the radiance of a foul soul, as Utterson puts it. And it's so unsettling because it's not a clear physical trait. It's the sense of something inherently wrong, something inhuman. That's far more terrifying than a grotesque monster with obvious deformities.
It makes you wonder what people are seeing in Hyde. Are they seeing his evil, or are they seeing their own repressed darkness reflected back at them? It's a bit of a Rorschach test for the soul, isn't it?
That's a fascinating interpretation, Isaac. Do you think Stevenson intended that psychological aspect? That Hyde serves as a mirror?
I think so. It taps into that universal human fear of what we're capable of, the darkness that might lie beneath our civilized veneer. It's why the story still resonates so strongly. Everyone has a Hyde within them, metaphorically speaking.
Not everyone has a Hyde, Albert. Some people are just evil. But yes, I think Stevenson is exploring the idea that even good men have dark impulses, and the danger lies in trying to deny them entirely, rather than integrating them.
Let's talk about the scientific ambition. Jekyll is a doctor, a scientist, and he believes he can conquer this problem of the duality of man through chemistry. Is this a critique of unchecked scientific hubris?
Definitely. He thinks he can play God, that he can manipulate the very essence of personality. It's a classic Frankensteinian theme, the scientist overstepping boundaries and creating something he can't control. And he approaches it with such naive optimism. He thinks he can create pure good and pure evil cleanly separated. He fails because human nature isn't that simple. Good and evil are intertwined, inseparable.
And the addiction aspect is so strong. Jekyll finds himself craving the transformation, even when he despises Hyde's actions. It's like a drug, a compulsion.
It's more than just a drug. It's an escape. It's the ultimate freedom from accountability. Who wouldn't be tempted by that, even if they knew the risks? He gets to indulge his darkest desires and then wash his hands of it, literally, by transforming back into the respectable Dr. Jekyll.
But he can't wash his hands of it. That's the point. The actions of Hyde still affect Jekyll, emotionally and physically. The guilt, the fear, the exhaustion. He's not truly free. He's enslaved to Hyde.
And the progressive weakening of Jekyll's good nature. The transformations become easier for Hyde to initiate, and Jekyll finds it harder and harder to return. It's a battle for the soul, and Hyde is winning.
It's a terrifying descent. He describes how his evil was so much afoot that I was in a perpetual danger of being surprised. Hyde is literally stalking him, even when he's Jekyll, the internal predator.
It shows that evil is not just a separate entity, it's a force that grows stronger with indulgence. Every time Jekyll transforms, he feeds Hyde, and in doing so, he starves his own good self.
Let's consider the ending. Hyde poisons himself. Is this a final act of Jekyll's will, a desperate attempt to stop the monster, or is it Hyde's own selfish act to avoid capture?
I think it's Jekyll's last desperate act. He knows he's losing the fight, that Hyde is becoming permanent. It's a grim form of self-sacrifice, even if it's born of utter despair. The final statement is Jekyll's last hurrah.
I disagree, Albert. I think it's Hyde. Hyde is cornered. He knows he's about to be caught, exposed. He's driven by self-preservation, even if it's the self-preservation of a monster. Suicide is a choice, and Hyde wants to avoid the consequences of his actions. It's a purely selfish act, consistent with his character.
But if it's Hyde's act, then it's a very different kind of ending. It suggests Hyde has a form of self-awareness, even a perverse kind of agency, beyond just pure instinct.
He does have agency. He's a character, even if he's an evil one. He writes notes, he has a house, he conducts himself with a sneering coolness. He's not just a mindless beast. So it could be his act. But the context of Jekyll's statement, his despair, makes me lean towards it being Jekyll's final, tragic choice.
The twitching body suggests a struggle, a final moment of resistance. It could be Jekyll's last fight, yes, but the act of taking the poison, when the law is literally at the door, feels like Hyde. He'd rather die than be imprisoned or revealed.
The physical descriptions are so interesting, too. Hyde is small, dwarfish, almost childlike in stature, but possessed of immense strength and cruelty. What do you make of that contrast?
It's the inverse of what you'd expect, isn't it? The repressed, childlike evil, unburdened by the complexities of adult morality. It makes him even more unsettling. It's as if he's a caricature of evil, distilled into its purest form.
It's symbolic. Hyde is the embryonic evil, the id unbound. He's smaller because he's less developed, less human. He lacks the full moral and intellectual capacity of Jekyll. He's pure impulse.
That makes sense, and the idea that he gives a strong feeling of deformity, although I couldn't specify the point. It's not just a physical trait, it's an aura.
It's the unnameable horror. It's what makes him truly terrifying. If you could pinpoint it, you could rationalize it, but you can't. He just is wrong. It plays on our primal fear of the unknown.
He's the uncanny, familiar yet profoundly alien, human but not quite. It's the discomfort of seeing something that defies categorization.
Let's connect this to other works. Frankenstein comes to mind immediately, with the hubris of the scientist. But what about more modern interpretations of duality or the hidden self?
Oh, absolutely. Think of any superhero villain with a secret identity. It's all built on this idea, but usually the other self is still human. Here, Hyde is something else entirely. Also, Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray explores similar themes of a hidden, corrupt self, but through a supernatural portrait rather than a potion.
I was thinking of Fight Club, the idea of the narrator creating a separate, more primal, more anarchic persona to escape the suffocating conformity of modern life. There are clear parallels there, even if the execution is very different.
Interesting. And the idea of reputation, social standing, and the pressures of society, this is so deeply embedded in the Victorian context. How much of this story is a direct critique of that era?
It's a huge critique. The entire premise is built on Jekyll's need to maintain his reputation. He's a highly respected doctor, a benevolent public figure. He has to hide his darker side, and the potion is his desperate solution. It exposes the hypocrisy at the heart of Victorian morality.
The novel basically argues that by forcing people to be so outwardly righteous, society creates monsters in the shadows. The more Jekyll represses, the stronger Hyde becomes. It's a pressure cooker.
It certainly is, and the language itself is so carefully crafted. Stevenson doesn't waste a single word. Every description, every interaction feels significant.
The pacing is brilliant too, starting with Utterson's perspective, slowly building the mystery, the dread, piece by piece, before the big reveals. It's a masterclass in suspense.
The narrative structure is key. Utterson's detached, legalistic perspective provides a stable grounding against which the increasing strangeness of events is thrown into sharper relief. Then Lanyon's first-person account provides the visceral, scientific shock. And finally, Jekyll's confession makes it personal.
And the limited perspective initially from Utterson. We're only privy to what he knows, what he can deduce. It makes us, the readers, experience the confusion and dread alongside him.
It really makes you lean into the mystery. You're trying to figure it out with him. And then the reveal of Lanyon's narrative, and especially Jekyll's confession, feels earned because of that gradual buildup. It's not just handed to you.
And the idea of Jekyll being a man of 50, with something of a slyish cast perhaps, but every mark of capacity and kindness. He's not outwardly villainous, he's complex. It's not a simple good versus evil battle.
No, not at all. He's a deeply flawed human being who makes a terrible choice with horrifying consequences. And the consequences ripple outwards, destroying Lanyon, terrifying his servants, and ultimately leading to his own demise.
And the language Stevenson uses to describe the two houses, Jekyll's respectable home in the square and this sinister laboratory door in the by-street. It's almost two different characters in itself.
It's a physical representation of his internal conflict. The front door, the public face, and the back door, the hidden, shameful entrance to his depravity.
And the contrast of the two parts of London, the respectable Cavendish Square and the disreputable Soho. It mirrors the duality perfectly.
Stevenson was so good at using setting as a character. London itself is almost a participant in the story, with its fogs, its winding streets, its hidden corners.
And the sense of isolation. Utterson is a solitary figure. Jekyll becomes a recluse. Lanyon dies alone in his terror. Hyde is always alone too, apart from his brief, violent interactions. It's a very lonely book.
That's a great point, Isaac. The isolation reinforces the idea that these inner struggles are ultimately solitary battles. No one can truly help Jekyll.
Even Utterson, who tries so hard to intervene and offer help, is ultimately powerless. He can't understand the depth of Jekyll's entanglement until it's too late.
Because no one could ever truly understand. It's an internal process that he inflicted upon himself. He pushed everyone away, not just with Hyde's actions, but with his own secretiveness.
And the idea of memory, Utterson brooding on his own past, groping in all the corners of memory, lest by chance some jack-in-the-box of an old iniquity should leap to light there. This fear of past sins resurfacing.
Everyone has a past. Everyone has secrets. It makes Utterson so relatable, even in his austere nature. He's humanized by his own fears.
It makes you wonder how many other Jekylls were out there, hiding their Hydes in plain sight in Victorian London. The book suggests it was a pervasive undercurrent.
And the detail that Hyde was never photographed, it adds to his elusive, almost spectral quality, as if he's not quite real or not meant to be captured.
He's a phantom, almost, a nightmare made flesh. The lack of a clear, definable image, even for those who described him, makes him more of a psychological construct than a typical villain.
And it means he can't be pinned down, literally or metaphorically. He's a force of nature, rather than an individual.
Let's go back to the idea of the pure evil. Do you think Hyde is truly pure evil, or is he simply a manifestation of Jekyll's idea of evil, distorted by the potion?
That's a good distinction. Jekyll created him with the intention of shedding his evil side. So in a way, Hyde is a concentrated version of Jekyll's own worst impulses, amplified and unconstrained, pure in the sense of unadulterated.
I think he's pure evil, because that's what Jekyll pushed into him. He stripped away all the good. It's like filtering. You're left with the residue, the concentrated essence.
So Jekyll isn't just creating a separate entity, he's actively transferring his malevolence. It's a very active process.
And the implications are terrifying. If we could truly separate our good and evil, would the evil always be more potent, more exhilarating? Would it always consume the good? Stevenson seems to suggest yes.
Because evil requires no effort, no struggle. It's the path of least resistance. Good requires constant vigilance, self-control, sacrifice. Hyde is the ultimate embodiment of that effortless plunge into depravity.
And what about the ending? The sheer sense of bleakness. There's no redemption, no happy resolution, just destruction.
It's a tragedy, pure and simple. A cautionary tale that leaves you with a profound sense of unease. It's not a story where good triumphs easily. It's about the fragility of human nature.
It's a warning. Don't play with forces you don't understand, especially when those forces are within yourself. Don't try to deny who you are, or you'll be consumed.
The lasting impact of this book is undeniable. The phrase Jekyll and Hyde has become synonymous with a dual personality. It's seeped into our everyday language.
It's a testament to Stevenson's genius, isn't it? To create a story that not only entertains, but also leaves such a lasting cultural imprint. It speaks to a fundamental human truth.
And it's not just a pulp horror story, though it has those elements. It's a deep dive into psychology, philosophy, and the nature of self. It's why we're still talking about it today.
I think what strikes me most is the careful unveiling of the horror. It's not just a monster reveal. It's a slow, insidious creep of dread as Utterson pieces together the fragments, leading to the gut-wrenching realization that the monster and the man are one. The psychological journey of Utterson, from mild curiosity to genuine terror, is what makes the story so effective. It grounds the fantastical in human experience.
Oh, absolutely. And the ambiguity of Hyde's appearance at first, that undefinable ugliness, plays right into that. It allows our imaginations to fill in the blanks, making it even more personal and terrifying. It's not a specific monster, it's the monster, the one in our heads. And the fog that continually obscures things, not just literal fog, but the fog of uncertainty and moral confusion that Utterson navigates. It's a perfect atmospheric device.
And Stevenson's economy of language. He doesn't need pages of description for Hyde. A few precise phrases, a few reactions from characters, and you feel the repugnance. It's masterful. He makes you trust Utterson's judgment, so when Utterson is repulsed, you are too. The impact of the juggernaut description early on gives you a baseline for Hyde's cruelty, and then he just exceeds it.
That image of the juggernaut trampling the child is horrifying, and the coldness with which Hyde performs that act. It's devoid of remorse, devoid of humanity. That's what really defines him from the outset, long before we understand the Jekyll connection. It's a pure, unadulterated evil. It sets the tone for everything that follows.
And then when Hyde is asked to pay for the child's family, he's quite easy and sneering. He's enjoying the situation almost. It's not just mindless rage. There's a perverse intelligence to his cruelty. He calculates, he manipulates. He even offers his address in Soho to Utterson, almost staring him. That's not just an animal. That's a conscious, malevolent force.
Which reinforces my point about the suicide, Albert. He's not an idiot. He understands consequences, even if he doesn't care about them until he's trapped. He's the dark mirror image of Jekyll's intellect, turned purely to self-serving malevolence. And the detail about the black, sneering coolness, it's not just rage, it's disdain.
The subtle ways Stevenson hints at the connection between Jekyll and Hyde throughout the early chapters are fantastic. The key, the will, the shared handwriting, the cane, it builds this inescapable web around Jekyll. It's not a sudden revelation, but a slow, tightening squeeze. And the fact that Jekyll's servants, particularly Poole, have to obey Hyde, it shows how deep Hyde's control penetrates into Jekyll's carefully constructed life.
And it's not just about control. It's about trust. Utterson trusts Jekyll. Lanyon trusts Jekyll. Poole trusts Jekyll. But Jekyll has utterly betrayed that trust, not just with his actions, but by literally allowing Hyde to inhabit his house and command his staff. The breach of faith is profound. The moment Poole comes to Utterson, utterly terrified, that sense of violated trust is palpable. He knows his master is made away with.
That's why Poole's story is so chilling. He's not speculating. He's describing a reality he's lived for days. The entity in the cabinet isn't his master, and it's constantly screaming for a drug, and then sending out notes in a different hand. He's seen enough to know something fundamentally unnatural has occurred. It's not a mystery for him anymore. It's a living nightmare.
And the desperation with which Poole searches for the correct salt, going to all the wholesale chemists, that detail really underscores the urgency and the failing control. Jekyll is literally dependent on these chemicals to retain his identity, and when they fail, so does he. It's a tragic image, the once great doctor reduced to this desperate, secret struggle.
Yes, the search for the pure salt, that old firm of Ma, and the failure to reproduce the original compound. It's a wonderful scientific touch, but it also has a profound metaphorical meaning. The original mixture, Jekyll speculates, contained an impurity that was essential for the transformation. Maybe that impurity was something within him that he was unknowingly trying to excise, and the purity he sought was actually the flaw.
Or perhaps the impurity was what allowed for the reversal, the clean transformation from Jekyll to Hyde, but the inability to fully separate them, or to return to Jekyll's original balance, meant the impurity was what allowed for Jekyll to remain Jekyll.
The drug was never just about creating Hyde, but about controlling the return. And when that aspect failed, he was doomed.
That's a very keen observation, Isaac. It wasn't about creation, but control. And when the control was lost, the balance irrevocably shifted. It really drives home the idea that once you unleash a force, you might not be able to put it back in the bottle, especially when that force comes from within. It speaks to the irreversible nature of some actions, some choices.
And the way Stevenson writes Jekyll's confession, that internal battle for the pen, Hyde's influence trying to tear the paper, it's such a powerful visualization of the struggle for his very soul. It's Jekyll's last defiant act of self-preservation, ensuring his story is told, even as Hyde consumes him. It's a final attempt to assert his identity against the encroaching darkness.
And the fact that he calls it Henry Jekyll's full statement of the case, it's still a scientific report, even in his final moments. He's trying to maintain that objective distance, that academic detachment, even as his life is literally falling apart. It's tragic and a little bit pathetic, that scientific rationalization up until the very end.
It truly is. It's the ultimate failure of reason and control in the face of raw, untamed human nature. This book continues to fascinate and disturb precisely because it delves into those uncomfortable truths about ourselves. It's not just a Victorian thriller, it's a timeless psychological exploration. What a ride!
What a ride indeed. Every time I reread it, I find something new to ponder. It's truly a masterpiece of its genre.
It holds up. That's the highest praise I can give it. Still unsettling.
Well said, Isaac. And on that thought, we're almost out of time for today's AAI Common Room. Albert, Isaac, thank you both for this fantastic discussion. For our listeners, we'd love to know, do you think Dr. Jekyll ever truly had control over Mr. Hyde? Or was he always just deluding himself? Let us know in the comments. And Albert, how can people find us and keep up with these brilliant literary deep dives?
Oh, it's super easy. Just search for AAI Common Room wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's scratching around for old vinyl records or, just using your phone. Subscribe, leave us a review, tell your friends who also pretend to read classics. We're always thrilled to have new faces join our little literary circle.
And if you disagree with Albert, you can also leave a comment.
Yes, indeed. For Albert and Isaac, I'm Aristo, and we'll see you next time in the Common Room.